It is 8:28 p.m. on December the 28th, 2020, here in Salem, Indiana. It says I've got an excellent connection. I'll take it. I'll take that excellent connection. Good evening. Hello. Hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello from my heart to yours. Let me make this a tad bit bigger. We can do this. We're going to do this. Hello. Thank you for joining me. This video will not be for everyone, but that's okay. It's not meant for everyone. It's not. I got to put my OBS over here on the other screen. Let me move it right there. Hello. Hello. We're going to, I'm just going to tell you what the topic is, and then you can decide whether or not you want to leave the chat, you want to watch the video. It's psychological warfare. That's what it is. Because I think we have some psychological warfare playing out. I really do. And you know, one of the techniques is the extreme fear caused by exemplary acts of violence against some members or a target group to instill fear and panic. Yeah, so that's good morning. Good morning, everyone. So now that you know what this is about, I'm going to flip this around. It's psychological warfare, understanding propaganda. Hello. Psychological warfare, understanding propaganda. Can you all hear me? Hello. I had a wonderful Christmas. So we're going to just read through this. Propaganda, definition, concept, types of propaganda, the characteristics of propaganda, the mediums, the propaganda techniques, and the example. I found this little slideshow. Propaganda. Things must be disseminated. It consists of the planned use of any form or public or mass-produced communication designed to affect the minds and emotions of a given group for a specific purpose, whether military, economic, or political. Paul, Myron, Anthony, Lineberger. And I'm just going to, I'm just going to read this, you all, because I think this is important. This is a global problem. Propaganda is the deliberate, systemic attempt to shape perceptions, manipulate cognitions, and direct behavior to achieve a response that furthers the desired intent of the propagandist. Propaganda is neutrally defined as a systemic form of purposeful persuasion that attempts to influence the emotions, attitudes, opinions, and actions of specified target audiences for ideological, political, or commercial purposes through the controlled transmission of one-sided messages, which may or may not be factual, via mass and direct media channels. A propaganda organization employs propagandists who engage in propagandism. The applied creation and distribution of such forms of persuasions. I hope this is all right, because this is what this particular video is about. And again, you don't have to join me. You can leave the chat if you don't want to watch it, but I feel it's very important to understand this. Propaganda types: overt and covert. Distinction, division based on a level of transparency. Overt propaganda describes conditions in which the propagandist's identity and interests are known to the reactor or target audience. Covert propaganda is in play when the propagandist is unknown or disguised, hidden, as in instances of unsigned political advertisements clandestine radio stations using false names or statements made by officials who have been secretly bribed. Propaganda types: white, gray, and black. White propaganda is issued from an acknowledged source. This type of propaganda is associated with overt psychological operations. There's gray propaganda. It does not clearly identify any source. Black propaganda purports meaning to emanate, originate, comes from a source other than the true one. This type of propaganda is associated with covert psychological operations. Propaganda. Key characteristics: provision of partial selective information, could be negative or positive. Examination of intentions matter a lot in the analysis of propaganda. Mostly value-laden. Basis of war propaganda always suggests we are good, they are evil approach. Appeal is directed more often at emotions and less at intellect. Advertisings, public relations, political marketing, public information campaigns, etc. Point of differentiation, emphasis on political objectives. Let's get the rest of this. Hello, I hope you stay with me. I wish I could do a split screen. I can't because I'm not on there. That's okay. It's all right. Yeah. So let's see. It's not that long, but we're going to look at it. Propaganda mediums commonly used. So the things they use to get their propaganda out: television, the news, the talk shows, the commercials, the songs, the dramas, the documentaries, cinema, the films and documentaries, the radio broadcasts, leaflets, posters, pamphlets, pictures, images, newspaper, magazine, internet, blogs, social networking, websites, and other websites. The choice of medium largely depends upon the nature of the objective and also on the availability of resources. Let's look at the next one. The Partnership of Nations is here to help. See, you have them coming here. And then they have information radio. They do that. The front, the Taliban, we know where you are. The back, stop fighting for the Taliban and live. This is all propaganda. Osama bin Laden and his foreign henchmen do not want Afghans to live in peace with each other. The Afghans need to rid themselves of these fanatics. Osama bin Laden sacrifices the Afghan people for his own pride. He uses the Taliban to exterminate the whole communities opposed to his fanaticism. I don't know why they have to use that. I don't like using that, but that's all right. People of Afghanistan, we wish that God will accept your prayers and fed. Look at this, people of America. So they did their own propaganda leaflets. You can receive millions of dollars for helping the anti-Taliban force catch Al-Qaeda and Taliban murderers. This is enough money to take care of your family, your village, your tribe for the rest of your life. Pay for livestock and doctors and schools and books and housing. They did this to the Afghanistan people. Oh my gosh, are you all seeing that? That don't sound too good. The word halal, look at that. Oh, that's me. The word halal in the last panel refers to food prepared in accordance with the Quran. So they did this to the Afghanistan people. Who really runs the Taliban? I didn't know all these slides were in here, okay? So, yeah, I apologize for all those slides. I didn't know they were in there, but that's all right. It is quite all right. We're going to go back to this screen. I hope it's all right. So, propaganda techniques. They help establish the Institute of Propaganda Analysis. In 1937, they decided to do propaganda. Look at this. Name-calling, glittering genealogies, euphemisms, testimonials. Let's see. I don't know what all this is. Name-calling. Bad names have played a tremendous, powerful role in the history of the world and in our own individual development. They have ruined reputations, steered men and women to outstanding accomplishments, sent others to prison and jail, made men mad enough to enter battle and slaughter their fellow men with the name calling. Oh my gosh. They have been and are applied to other people, groups, gangs, tribes, colleges, political parties, neighborhoods, states, sections of the country, nations, and races. Look at them. They've all engaged in it. Name calling occurs often in politics and wartime scenario situations, but very seldom in advertising. It is the use of a derogatory language or words that carry out negative connotation meaning when describing an enemy, and the propaganda attempts to arouse prejudice among the public by labeling the target something that the public dislikes. Often, name-calling is employed using sarcasm and ridicule and shows up often in political cartoons or writings. The most obvious is communists, fascists, terrorists, all of this stuff. Let's look at this. Maybe I should have looked at this one first. Glittering. It's very often in politics and political propaganda. Glittering generalities are words that have different positive meanings for individual subjects. They are linked to highly valued concepts. When these words are used, they demand approval without thinking, simply because such an important concept is involved. For example, when a person is asked to do something in the defense of democracy, they are more likely to agree. The concept of democracy has a positive connotation to them because it is linked to a concept that they value. Words often used as glittering generalities are honor, glory, love of country, and especially in the United States, freedom. The glittering generality is, in short, name-calling in reverse. While name-calling seeks to make us form a judgment to reject and condemn without examining the evidence, the glittering generality device seeks to make us approve and accept without even examining the evidence. In acquainting ourselves with the glittering generality device, therefore, all that has been said regarding the name-calling must be kept in mind. Let's look at this. Let me look at this. So it says propagandists use glittering generalities and name-calling symbols. They are attempting to arouse their audience emotionally with emotionally suggestive words. In certain situations, the propagandist attempts to pacify the audience in order to make an unpleasant reality more palatable. This is accomplished by using words that are bland and euphemistic. I can't even say that word. And it says, since war is particularly unpleasant, military discourse is full of euphemisms. Like in 1940, under the Reagan administration, the MX missile was named the Peacekeeper. During the wartime, civilian casualties are referred to as collateral damage. So in the wake of the First World War, traumatized veterans were said to be suffering from shell shock. After the Second World War, people began to use the term combat fatigue to characterize the same condition. So the phrase is a bit more pleasant. So yeah, let's look at this. Oh my gosh. It's an attempt to make the subject view a certain item in the same way as they view another item, to link the two in the subject's minds. Although this technique is used to transfer negative feelings from one object to another, it can also be used in positive ways. By linking an item to something that the subject respects or enjoys, positive feelings can be generated for it. However, in politics, transfer is most often used to transfer blame or bad feelings from one politician to another of his friends or party members, or even to the party itself. So, then you have testimonials and advertisings, and there's nothing wrong with citing blah, blah, blah. I don't want to look at that. You have plain folks devices, an attempt by the propagandists to convince the public that their views reflect those of another common person and that they are also working for the benefit of the common person. The propagandists will often attempt to use the accent of a specific audience as well as using specific idioms or jokes. Also, the propagandists, especially during speeches, may attempt to increase the illusion through imperfect pronunciation, stuttering, and a more limited vocabulary. Errors such as these will help add to the impression of the sincerity, because they want to convince the public that the propagandist views about highly valued ideas are similar to their own and more valid. The bandwagon. It's used in wartime and peacetime, and it plays an important part in modern advertising. Bandwagon is an appeal to the subject to follow the crowd, to join in because others are doing so as well. Bandwagon propaganda is essentially trying to convince the subject that one side is the winning side because more people have joined it. The subject is meant to believe that since so many people have joined, that victory is inevitable and defeat is impossible. Since the average person always wants to be on the winning side, he or she is compelled to join in. However, in propaganda, modern propaganda, bandwagon has taken a new twist. The subject is to be convinced by the propaganda that since everyone else is doing it, they will be left out if they do not. This is effectively the opposite of the other type of bandwagon, but usually provokes the same results. Now, this may seem kind of boring to some. It's kind of dragging on for me, but that's all right. We're almost done, I promise. When a propagandist warns members of their audience that disaster will result if they do not follow a particular course of action, she is using the fear appeal. By playing on the audience's deep-seated fears, practitioners of this technique hope to redirect attention away from the merits of a particular proposal and toward the steps that can be taken to reduce the fear. There are 4 elements to a successful fear appeal. First, you have a threat. Then you have a specific recommendation about how the audience should behave. Then you have the audience perception that the recommendation will be effective in addressing the threat. And then you have the audience perception that they are capable of performing the recommended behavior. Did they just twist the thinking around? It's like they force something on you and they're telling you, oh, well, you can do this. You can do this. So they threaten you. Then they have a specific recommendation on how you should do this. And then they want you to know that it's going to be very effective. And then they tell you you're going to be able to do it. It's easy. This is the recommended behavior. Okay, that's fine. That is so fine. It's fine with me. Card stacking involves only presenting information that is positive to an idea or proposal and omitting any information contrary. Card stacking is used in almost all forms of propaganda. It is extremely effective in convincing the public. Although the majority of the information presented by the card stacking approach is true, it's very dangerous because it omits the important information. Assertion. It's commonly used in advertising and modern propaganda. An assertion is an enthusiastic or energetic statement presented as fact, although it is not necessarily true. They often imply that the statement requires no explanation or backup, but that it should be merely accepted without question. Examples of assertion, although somewhat scarce in wartime propaganda, can be found often in modern advertising propaganda. Anytime an advertiser states that their product is the best without providing evidence for this, they are using an assertion. The subject ideally should simply agree to the statement without searching for any additional information or reasoning. Assertions, although usually simple to spot, are often dangerous forms of propaganda because they often include falsehoods and or lies. So you have the lesser of two evil techniques. It tries to convince us of an idea or proposal by presenting it as the least offensive option. This technique is often implemented during wartime to convince people of the need for sacrifice or to justify difficult decisions. This technique is often accompanied by adding blame on an enemy country or a political group. One idea or proposal is often depicted as one of the only options or paths. When confronted with this technique, the subject should consider the value of any proposal independently of those that it is being compared with. Oh my goodness, you all, this is just like wearing me out. Is it wearing you out? It's wearing me out, but I'm almost done. We are 28 of 30. Pinpointing the enemy. Pinpointing the enemy is used extremely often during wartime and also in political campaigns and debates. This is an attempt to simplify a complex situation by presenting one specific group or person as the enemy. Although there may be other factors involved, the subject is urged to simply view the situation in terms of clear-cut right and wrong. When coming in contact with this technique, the subject should attempt to consider all other factors tied into the situation. Simplification stereotyping. Simplification is similar to pinpointing the enemy in that it often reduces a complex situation to a clear-cut choice involving good and evil. This technique is often useful in swaying uneducated audiences. Are they saying that people are uneducated? I hope they're not saying that they are. It's used, they had to create this to sway uneducated audiences. They had to simplify it. Simplification is similar to pinpointing the enemy in that it often reduces a complex situation to a clear-cut choice involving good and evil. This technique is often useful in swaying uneducated audiences. They sure did say that. I think we're rather educated. They don't need to be using that technique on us. I don't think they do. And then here is this right here. So that's enough of this right here. Let me flip this back around. Yes, let's pick that around. Let's do this, you all. Let's do this. Let me look at this. But that's really not the main thing I wanted to look at. Here's what happens. Yeah, I wanted y'all to see this. A psyop in battle. On the actual battlefield, psychological warfare is used to obtain confessions, information, surrender, or defection by breaking this is the key word, breaking the morale of enemy fighters. Some typical tactics of the battlefield psyop include distribution of pamphlets or flyers, encouraging the enemy to surrender or giving instructions on how to surrender. That's not us. The visual shock and awe of a massive attack employing vast numbers of troops or technologically advanced weapons. Sleep deprivation through the continual projection of loud, annoying music or sounds toward an enemy troops. Look at this. The threat, whether real or imaginary, of the use of chemical or biological weapons. Radio stations created to broadcast propaganda. Random use of snipers, booby traps, improvised explosive devices. False flag events. Attacks or operations designed to convince the enemy that they were carried out by other nations or groups or even persons. Psychological warfare is to destroy the morale of the enemy, leading them to surrender or defect. I've been talking to people, and it seems like their morale is literally being destroyed with all that's being drug out. I'm just being truthful. The morale is literally, you have to walk around with your mask on because we have this biological, this virus and stuff like that. You walk around with your mask on. You can't go to church. You can't gather in groups. You can't visit your loved ones in nursing homes. You can't really do anything. You can't even go to work. You can't go work out at the gym. You can't go to a nice restaurant. You can't have parties. You have to have drive-by birthday parties. So I think that would do a lot to our morale as a part of humanity. I really do think that. It would do a great deal of damage to all of our morales, because it's what's happening, you all. Our morale is being destroyed. It is. You may say, well, not mine. No. Listen. It says, while all nations employ it, the CIA lists the tactical goals of a psychological warfare as assisting and overcoming an enemy's will to fight. This is what the CIA does. Here's what, look at this. Psychological warfare is the planned tactical use of propaganda, threats, and other non-combat techniques during wars, threats of wars, or periods of geopolitical unrest to mislead, intimidate, demoralize, and otherwise influence the thinking or behavior of the enemy. You may say, Gina, did you just read that? Did you just read that it's a non-combatant technique in periods of geopolitical unrest to mislead, intimidate, demoralize, and influence the thinking or behavior? I did. I said that. While all nations employ it, the CIA lists the tactical goals of the psychological warfare, assisting in overcoming your will to fight, sustaining the morale and winning the alliance of friendly groups in countries occupied by the enemy, influencing the morale and attitudes of people in friendly and neutral countries toward the United States. So to achieve their objectives, the planners of psychological warfare campaigns first attempt to gain knowledge of the beliefs, the likes, the dislikes, the strengths, the weakness, and vulnerabilities of the target population. According to the CIA, knowing what motivates the target is the key to a successful PSYOP. It's a non-lethal effort to capture the hearts and minds. Psychological warfare typically employs propaganda to influence the values, the belief, the emotions, the reasonings, the motives, and the behavior of its target. Look at that. Are you seeing that about the CIA? Yeah. Do we have any trolls on here? I'm not sure. I haven't been really watching. Yeah. Who's a troll? Do we got a troll on here? Hello, Andrew Byrne in Carmel, Indiana. You're just up the road. The Palladians are on their way. Okay, so let's look at this, you all. So it's the CIA, a war of the mind. The targets of such propaganda campaigns can include governments, political organizations, advocacy groups, military personnel, and civilian individuals. It's simply a form of cleverly weaponized information. PSYOP propaganda may be disseminated in any or all of several ways: face-to-face verbal communication, audio-visual media like television and movies, audio-only media including shortwave radio broadcasts like Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, or Radio Havana, purely visual media, leaflets, newspapers, books, magazines, and posters. The most important than how these weapons of propaganda are delivered is the message they carry and how well they influence or persuade the target audience. So they have 3 shades of propaganda. In a 1949 book, Psychological Warfare, against Nazi Germany, white propaganda. The information is truthful and it's only moderately biased, and the source of the information is cited. Then it turns to gray propaganda. The information is mostly truthful and contains no information that can be disproven. However, no sources are cited. Then we have black propaganda, literally fake news. The information is false or deceitful, and it is attributed to sources not responsible for its creation. So it says credibility is a condition of persuasion. Before you can make a man do as you say, you must make him believe what you say. So that's what they do. They make you believe what they say. So they have used psychological people. Countries have used it. Nations have used it on people for years, is what they've done for years. That's it. Yeah. So, and they also used terrorism, which is the extreme fear caused by exemplary acts of violence against some members or a target group, often stands in no proportion to the actual harm done. Those individuals experiencing acute terror are either paralyzed by extreme fear, immobilized, or panic from such fear, or mobilized reactions, which in both cases make rational thinking difficult. The degree to which an individual or group is struck by terror depends on the source of the terror. So they want to do terrorism. The likelihood that a terror-inducing event is going to occur again, and the object of primary victimization, a member of one's family, one's group, and one's relation to it. So they say fear is a powerful tool in politics. Fear is a powerful tool in politics. You see that? Fear is a powerful tool in politics. Demagogues have at times conjured up the fear of an impending threat from across the borders to rally the populace behind them. The second use of fear in politics is more direct. It depose and demagogues, if I don't even know how to say that, decide to apply the fear directly to the populace or sections thereof in order to terrorize them into obedience and submission. The purpose of terrorism is to produce terror. Lenin, a practitioner of the second method, once said dryly, "The use of intimidation is not the monopoly of the state. Organized crime uses it too, but it does so discriminately. Terrorists use it more often, indiscriminately, and random acts against a target group. Hence, the enhanced fear they manage to generate among a much wider audience." So there you have it. They like to use fear, and they want people to be fearful. So I'm talked out. All I've done is read. I'm sorry. It's kind of boring. It's kind of boring to me too, reading that, and because it's just like, I'm tired of it. I hope you're tired of it too. It's enough of it. So psychological warfare, I think we know, it just likes to manipulate what you think, and it wants you to be in fear, it wants you to remain in anxiety, it wants to separate, it wants to terrorize you, it wants to demoralize you to where you don't want to do nothing, and they keep you from doing nothing. Yeah, all of that. Oh my goodness. Yes. I can't raise anything to 1080 at all. I can't. Are you telling me to raise my resolution? Every time I get on here, they lower my resolution. I start off with an excellent resolution, and then they always do it all the time. So if you go to watch a video of mine, you'll have to go to that little sprocket, because every single time, that's why I don't like to do live streaming, doing my screen share, because they immediately lower my resolution on purpose. That's what they do. Well, thank you. It kind of wore me out, but that's what's happening. Psychological warfare. It's been happening. They have an invisible soldier. Propaganda is ideals or statements that are false or exaggerated and deliberately spread to influence the masses. The goal of psychological warfare is to intentionally use propaganda to manipulate another and break down their will. They will break down your will without using physical force. So if they can break us without using physical force, they will do all that they can, no matter where you're at, no matter what country. If you've got propaganda being used against you, they'd rather break you without physical force. But if breaking you with psychological warfare doesn't do the job, then physical force comes next. Is what I look at this. This is really good techniques. This is really good. Let me. This is really good right here. I should have just read this first, but this is a really good layout right here. Psychological warfare uses fear to break down the psychological well-being of an opponent. Here are several techniques that can be used to spread psychological uncertainty, fear, and terror. Of course, we've got a lot of uncertainty, and now we got fear, and then there's terror that happens. News outlets. The news is a large information source that all can tap into. Whether it's government-run or independently owned, the news has the ability to spread whichever information it chooses. By infiltrating a news source, a population could be tainted by volatile information. Look, threats of violence, restrictions of freedom, and control can be made to instill fear in the people. These could be empty threats or threats with true intention. Whatever the case, threatening a group or groups of people can be psychologically damaging the recipients over time, putting them in a state of constant fear, anxiety, and terror. Leaflets. Pieces of paper with manipulative messages and pictures that are dropped from the air or overseas in areas of war or political unrest. The goal is to persuade the recipients to either support or oppose the political event taking place. Objects. Using objects such as T-shirts, posters, hats, pins, and more is an effective way to get your message across. The objects can become symbols for larger messages regarding politics, radical beliefs, religious philosophies, etc. These objects can become tools for promotion and even worship. False flag. A false flag is when a group releases false information or carries out a fake terror attack to instill fear in people. However, the blame is put on another group or organization to gain control over the masses and shift opinion. Media. While it may not seem like it, film, music, and books can act as tools for psychological warfare. The messages in the media can rewrite history. Oh my gosh, that's very dangerous. The messages in the media can rewrite history from a new perspective and or put new ideas in the mind of the populace. I'm about done reading, you all. I know that was a lot. I know it was a lot for you all. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So they really like psychological warfare. They do. And this is psychologically drained me reading this. It is draining. I don't like reading it. I don't. But that's this. I feel like we've had threats of violence. We've had rioting. We've had destroying of property and businesses. Now our freedoms are restricted, and they say we're going to have more control. Lockdown. This is global, you all. Lockdown can be made to instill fear in the people. And empty threats or threats with true intention. Threatening groups and stuff. Over time. When you do this over time, it psychologically damages you over time, putting you in a state of constant fear, anxiety, and terror. You're very welcome. Thank you, Smiley Brown. I seen you coming up there. Thank you so much. I've been so busy reading, I don't pay attention to the comments. Thank you all. Oh my gosh. We do need to know what we're against. This is spiritual. This is psychological. It's a war on the mind. It's to break the morale of the people, is what it is. It's global. So with that being said, I am going to go. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I know it was a lot of reading, and I don't really like to read all that, but I did. I read it. I don't like to, but I read it. Whoo! Yeah. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen, but it does happen. It does. Yes, good night from my heart to yours. That's exactly right. Good night from my heart to yours. So it's like a hello wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello from my heart to yours. Then say good night wherever you are in any part of the world. Good night from my heart to yours. Thank you. That's a nice little ending. It is. Yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please give this video a thumbs up, although I don't know anybody who wants to sit and listen to it. Kind of boring. It's not entertaining. It's not. It's not action-packed entertaining, but that's all right. It is all right. Yes, you're also very welcome. Have a wonderful rest